What's up, my friends? Joey B here once again with another World War III scenario report for Sunday, January 1st, 2012. And this first article I want to kick things off with here is from the Extinction Protocol, and it reads Iran to begin long range missile tests during naval drill in the Gulf. And it says here Iran has said it is set to begin tests of long range missiles in the Persian Gulf on Saturday. Shorter and longer range ground to sea, surface to surface, and surface to air missiles will be tested on Saturday, Navy Deputy Commander Admiral Mahmoud Mousavi told the semi official Fars news agency. And apparently, India is to revamp its submarine fleet amidst rising naval tensions in the region. And it says here, faced with a fast depleting underwater combat army, India is planning a major overhaul of its submarine production plants to ensure its operational readiness does not get further eroded in the years ahead. The chief of Mossad has reportedly hinted that a nuclear armed Iran does not necessarily pose an existential threat to the Jewish state. The spokesman for Iranian Navy's Velaya 90 war games in the Strait of Hormuz says three of Iran's newest domestically manufactured Ghadir-class submarines are actively present in the naval drills. And according to Ron Paul, Iran is no threat to U.S. security. Hormuz Strait vital to world economy, reads the title of this article. And it says here, head of Mali's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, Aladin Boroujerdi, says global economy highly depends on the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. An American investigative journalist says the Al-Qaeda is a fairy tale terrorist group made up by the Central Intelligence Agency and the Israeli spy agency Mossad. And I know my subscribers are no stranger to that. As we know, the nickname floating around out there is Al-Qaeda. Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Sayed Jalili, says Iran will deliver a crushing response to any threat against the country and make the enemies rue the day. More saber rattling here as the U.S. apparently sets the stage for war against Iran. I mean, like we didn't already know, and I told you about the strategic positioning, how they're, obviously in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they're the countries on the each side of Iran. And it's like I said, a 12-year-old who plays the board game Risk can understand that strategic positioning. Anyhow, it says here, the recent allegations made by the United States against Iran have set the stage for a war against the Islamic Republic. A war that I'm against, I might add, and everybody should be against. And not because we're against our government and anti-government and not because we're terrorists like they want to make us believe, but because we don't approve of any war from any nation who wants to take military action. At least that's my stance on it. You know, I'm not only against the U.S. waging war against Iran. I'm against Iran waging war against the U.S. But the problem is someone's going to take initiative, and I'm sure we can all guess who that is. I won't even speculate. Okay, and then someone's going to have to defend themselves. And in the end, it's like we always say, it's the military-industrial complex and the whole war scenario is just another tool of the elite for depopulation and control over the masses. Okay, and this has been the plan from the very beginning. If you go back and read some of Albert Pike's work, 3 world wars to collapse the world into a one world government. And that's what this is all about. The Iranian envoy to Germany says a new round of nuclear talks between Iran and the world's 6 major powers will resume after all its conditions are agreed upon by both sides. And obviously, they're trying to tie Iran to 9/11 to justify going to war over there. You know, and it's like I said, did they not already go to war over this? And anyways, it says here, senior U.S. analyst believes Western media reports about Iran's complicity in the 9/11 terror attacks are nothing more than a tapestry of recycled fabrications and distortions of fact from a bizarre cast of characters. A senior Iranian commander says other countries will not join hands with the United States in imposing sanctions on Iran's oil sector, as such a move would inflict heavy losses. And as the title alludes to here, Iran oil ban will take toll on world. And obviously, I've shown you articles in the past talking about how this would, what type of ramifications this would have on the global economy. The Iraqi Prime Minister describes the end of U.S. military presence in the country a great success, designating December 31st as the National Day of Iraq. Apparently, tensions between Qatar and the King of Saudi Arabia are rising to a boiling point, as this article alludes to here. And it says here, following revelations about Qatar's plan to overthrow the Saudi Arabian monarchy, tensions between the two countries have reached a new level over adherence to Wahhabism. I'll also going to link you up with this video here. And it says, Syria has been the scene of clashes during the past months, which the government says is created by the armed groups supported by NATO and the West to destabilize the country. And I've already talked a lot about this as well, and how they destabilize areas before they move in. And we've seen these methods and approaches taken in previous wars on other areas, such as Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. And here's another video I'm going to hook you guys up with in the links in the description box below the video. And it says here, Western media reports contradict reality on the ground in Syria, according to the Arab League that points the finger to U.S. agenda to dominate Middle East resources. And I've also talked a lot about that, on how all these wars are you know, basically based on the control of resources. And that's what we see going on in the Middle East, and that's what we see going on in the South China Sea, and that's what we see going on up in the Arctic, you know. The U.S. has signed a deal to sell over $3 billion worth of missiles and related technology to the United Arab Emirates. Okay, and it says this is just more information on how the U.S. is behind the sectarian tension in the Middle East, as the title says here. And according to this article here, Iran is the real target of the attack on Syria. The Arab League has not supported the U.S. in its quest to mount military attack against Syria to force regime change, which led to a major outbreak of war in the region. And isn't that what it's all about, right? They mount military attacks to force regime change, or create civil unrest to force regime change, so they get their puppets in control, and this is how it will ultimately get all the powers of the world to agree on world government eventually, you would presume, if this trend continues. Over on globalresearch.ca now, and the title of this article here is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to get into the article, but I'll read you the headline, as it says, New CIA drone bases in Afghanistan and Central Asia. Here's another article I'm going to link you guys up with below, and it's also from globalresearch.ca, and it reads, Arab League mission to Syria becomes focus of demands for military intervention. And according to this article here, as it says, dangerous crossroads, and it says, so there you have it. The U.S. Navy is deployed in the Persian Gulf, according to this article. The White House and some U.S. Congress lawmakers have locked horns over the U.S. administration's refusal to provide details of Washington's controversial assassination drone programs around the world. According to this article here from Press TV, Iran produces its first nuclear fuel rod. Iranian nuclear scientists have successfully managed to build and test the country's first nuclear fuel rod containing natural uranium, a report says. According to a leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, says Iran has achieved eye-catching successes in its confrontation with hegemonic powers and their economic and propaganda campaigns. A senior Iranian military commander says the strategic Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf lies within Iran's line of defense, and that the Islamic Republic will deliver a crushing response to any act of aggression. And this comes on the heels of an article that I showed you previously in this video, in which they said any aggressors would be fed not only humble pie, but would rue the day. Apparently, Iran has proved it can seal the Hormuz Strait. A report says Iran has proved its claim that closing the strategic Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf is as easy as drinking water. U.S. Republican presidential candidate Rick Santorum has said he would bomb Iran's nuclear facilities upon his election as president if Tehran does not open up its sites for international arms inspectors. Hopefully this guy doesn't get elected. I don't think it matters which one gets elected, right? Like I said, they're all puppets anyways. Two former CIA analysts have advised U.S. President Barack Obama to immediately put an end to the torrent of war propaganda against Iran, as this will lead to the destruction of Israel and devastation of the world economy. These former CIA analysts probably aren't aware that this is the goal, you know. The powers that be want this to happen. According to this article here, invading Iran is invading Russia and China as well. A political analyst says Russia and China consider a U.S. military action on Iran as an attack on their own borders and a threat to their own national security. And I've talked a lot about that in the strategic positioning, you know, I'm not going to get into it again due to lack of time here, but just go back, watch all my war updates, and you can get a full picture of what's going on here. And obviously Russia and China heavily rely on those economies close to them and the stability of those areas because they're right on their borders as well. So of course they're going to take you know, sides with them because it's in the best interests of their country. Pakistan and India are going to exchange lists of nuclear installations and facilities as part of measures not to attack each other's atomic sites. North Korea's government has called on people to throw their weight behind the country's new leader Kim Jong-un and protect him unto death. Apparently, the Taliban have struck a U.S. Bagram air base. The Taliban militants say they have struck the U.S. Bagram air base in the north of the Afghan capital, Kabul, with 9 missiles in an attack which left many casualties. More breaking news here. In the Horn of Africa, it says U.S. proxy war in Somalia veers towards regional conflict. Ethiopia's anticipated invasion marks scramble for territory with Kenyan rival. Another article I'll link you up to, and don't forget to check the description box below the video for articles that I didn't show you in the video even because I didn't have time to get to them. But it says here, the American-Iranian Cold War in the Middle East and the threat of a broader war. And I'm going to go ahead and close off with this here article from the Extinction Protocol. And it reads, captured U.S. drone technology, radar evading missiles, and nuclear fuel rods. The crisis with Iran just got more dangerous. And see, this is what seems to be more fear-mongering here. Oh, look, they got our technology. Now they can make radar evading missiles that we might not see. They got reverse engineered our nuclear fuel rods. Oh, we got to be scared. It's going to be... Anyways, it's just good to be aware, people. Don't let it drive you crazy because there's nothing you can do about it. And let's just hope cooler heads prevail in the end. Much love and God bless, my friends.